Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Reject Films. Back with another review for you guys from the Warner Archive collection. And this is one I've been wanting to check out for a really long time, especially after being a big fan of the, I'll say remake, even though a lot of people, and I agree, isn't exactly a remake, it's a reimagining of the original film. And that is for the 1951 version of The Thing from Another World. Of course, reimagined or remade by John Carpenter in 1982, which is a fantastic film, and really this is as well. I was pleasantly surprised by this. I'm not a huge fan of older films like from this era, but I mean, granted, I've only seen a handful of them. You know, black and white films and the way that they talked back then and everything, I'm not the biggest fan of per se, but it might start growing on me now after watching this. And this was produced, as you can see up top there, by Howard Hawks, who was a producer, director, among other things. I took notes, so I gotta from 1926 all the way to 1970. Like, that name sounded familiar to me, but I couldn't really think of who he was. But man, that's a lot of time directing, producing, writing, whatever, with film. That's a great span career. You know, tons of films he was involved with, and of course this stars James Arness as the Thing, as the creature in this film, who went on to be one of the the main character, or one of the main characters, I'm not really sure because I never watched the show, of Gunsmoke. I do believe was the show. Yeah, played Matt Dillon on Gunsmoke. Like I said, I never watched the show, so I don't really know much about it. But you know, he had a really long run on that show. He was, you know, most famous for doing that. But like I say, I was really impressed with this film, and I always try, like I've said before, I always try to imagine, you know, watching something like this in 1951, 52 time frame as a, you know, somebody my age or younger or whatever, you know, and seeing something like this for the first time, it would just be, you know, it would just blow your mind. Like, the story, the way that the Thing looked, you know, of course, like the remake, that fear of claustrophobia, isolation, everything like that, being out there with nowhere to really go besides where you already are. You know, you're just set up in this little camp, and you know, battling the elements and everything as well. And yeah, like I say, I was really surprised with how much I actually enjoyed this film. And once this movie gets going, it doesn't stop either. I mean, there at the beginning, they're kind of just like talking, and there is a lot of dialogue in this movie. And I kind of read a little bit about Howard Hawks, and he was, I guess, like I said, I haven't seen a lot of his films, but I guess he was known for that kind of dialogue. Kind of reminds me of like Tarantino with his dialogue, even minus the language. Where it's just constant, and it's all meaningful as well. I mean, there's nothing, the conversations that really take place in this film that aren't necessary. And you know, aside from the way that they talk back then, which I kind of miss, because the way we talk to each other nowadays is really, you know, we use so much slang and improper vocabulary, and everything like that. Like, we've made up so many words since then, and you know, we don't talk to each other respectfully like they did back then. And you know, aside from getting past that, you know, but like I say, I try to imagine watching it back in that time frame, and you know, the way that they talked in this is the way that we actually talk to each other in society, you know, with that utmost respect, and you know, using proper words and not cursing at each other and everything else all the time like we do now. and I'm just as guilty as the next person. I cuss in a lot of my videos because it's become part of our natural, normal, everyday language. But yeah, and Howard Hawks had a hand in directing as well. He was uncredited in this. Get the word out. Come on. This is directed by Christian. I don't know how to say his last name, Nibby, or I don't know, it's Nyby. I'm not really sure how to pronounce that, but yeah. I mean, pretty much like the back says here, you know, Arctic researchers discover a huge frozen spaceling inside a crash-landed UFO. The fight for their lives after the murderous being and pre-Gunsmoke, James Arness, emerges from an icy captivity. Will other creatures soon follow? The famed final words of this film are both warning and answer. Keep watching the skies. Snappy ensemble, an eerie theremin infused score, rising suspense, crisp direction. Yeah, I mean, they start out, you have a group of researchers that are go to the Arctic, I believe it's the North Pole, to investigate this crash landing. They think it's you know, a plane that has crashed or something like that, and they get there and they realize, you know, this isn't the shape of a plane as we know it. You know, they kind of can see through the ice the shape of this thing, and they realize, you know, it's not something from this world. So along with the researchers, you have a doctor and a kind of like a press guy who's there to take photos and tell, you know, common citizens what's going on and everything. You have people with the Air Force and everything like that all gathered into this I'll say like this station, this setup that they have out there. But anyways, you know, they attempt to use the thermite to blow the ice and get to this spacecraft, and in doing so they kind of blow up the spacecraft as well. There's nothing left of that, but they do find frozen in the ice what appears to be a man. So they decide to chop the ice around it and bring him back in this big you know, block of ice back to the camp. And once they get back to the camp, they're pretty much taking turns standing guard, waiting for this thing to kind of melt. And where they're keeping him at isn't really regulated with the temperature and everything. Sorry, I just ate some kind of, yeah. They don't keep the temperature regulated in this room or anything, so it's taken, you know, forever for this thing to thaw out. And one of the guys whose turn it is to watch over this, you know, stand guard of this thing, is gets kind of tired of looking at it because you can see through the ice, and you know, it's kind of freaking him out. And he doesn't realize what he put on the ice was a heated blanket, and it's plugged in, so the ice just melts rapidly. And next thing he knows, the thing is out of the ice. He's alive. He goes after him, and he fires a few shots at him. Nothing even happens to the thing. And after that, they're kind of trying to find out where this thing went to. And in process as well, they find one of his arms, or part of his arm, that they initially thought was taken off by one of the dogs or something. They have a team of sled dogs that they keep outside, and you see a scene in there where he's fighting with the dogs and stuff like that. And so they bring the arm back in, and they realize it's made from some kind of vegetation. It's not human. You know, it's got like pointy fingernails, and it's, you know, really weird looking. and they examine it and all that, and there's kind of a discussion there about vegetation and how intelligent vegetation actually is, and all this stuff, and that kind of thing has been around for a long time, but they've never seen it take like this human form. And like I say, they're trying to kind of figure out where this thing went, and you find out later on that it has actually drained the blood of one of the dogs that they find in this lab area, and so this thing has to feed off of blood. And at the same time, you find out that a couple people that are stationed there, I'm not going to say how, but you find out that this thing has taken the lives of a couple people that are with them as well. And then after that, and you do kind of have like a little bit of a love story in here as well between the main, I didn't write any names down, I'm terrible at remembering names, but you do have kind of a love story between the main captain and this other woman. There's, I don't really know why it's thrown in there, I guess because you have to have a love interest in film, but there's some back and forth between them here and there and everything. It doesn't really focus on it too much, but and I can't imagine being kind of trapped in this camp with all these guys, and there's only like a couple women there, and it's like that would be kind of crazy. But anyway, so they decide eventually later on to kind of fight back and try to figure out how to kill this thing. And at the same time, the main doctor is kind of goes mad because he wants to preserve this thing. He doesn't want them to kill it. He wants to learn from it. And ever since they brought this thing back, he hasn't slept. He's kind of losing his mind. And during the process of them trying to figure out how to take this thing down, they realize, bullets don't do it. They tell people to gather their axes because they feel like, just chopping this thing up would probably be the best solution. If bullets aren't doing anything and everything else. They try to use fire against it at one point. I wasn't even going to say this much, but it is in the trailer, which I will leave at the end of this. I think it's only a minute and something trailer, so it's pretty short, but it does show that in there. And if you look up any images or anything, you're going to see it anyways, and you'll see actually how they end up taking him down, but I'm not going to tell you how they end up taking him down. This movie's been out since '51, so I guess, I didn't know how they ended up taking him down because I've never seen the movie, but I know a lot of you have, and there's a lot of people that are huge fans of this film. But like I say, when they go to take him down, there's a point in there where the doctor is trying to, goes up to the thing and trying to communicate with it, and he's like, these people are here to hurt you, and I don't want that, and pretty much, I don't know if it's those exact words, but he doesn't feel like this thing is there to cause any harm, but obviously it is. He just wants to learn from another life form. It's like one of the greatest discoveries. But like I say, I'm not going to tell you how they end up taking him down, so I don't want to spoil everything. But see if there's anything I'm missing. Not really. Pretty simple story, but at the same time it was kind of interesting. I think that was one of the more interesting parts of the film, is when they're sitting there talking about how can't get the word out, vegetation, they're talking about how a certain form of it traps its prey and all this stuff, and how they can kind of communicate with each other, like this plant life, this that it has a mind of its own, kind of, which I don't know how true that is, probably not, but I haven't really looked into that, so I couldn't tell you. But yeah, like I say, I really enjoyed this film. I really didn't think I was going to like it very much, and I ended up really enjoying this one. It's definitely one I'll revisit in the future. This had to have been completely terrifying watching this, especially like as a child or something in those days. You don't see a whole lot of the thing, mainly just when he first unthaws, you see like a glimpse of him fighting with the dogs, and then you see him, you know, come through the doorway towards the end of it when they try to take him out. But there's no, I don't think there was any real close-ups of him or anything like that. But you know, and of course the special effects there at the end when they take him out are a little cheesy, but it's 1951, so I'm sure back then it was super realistic and just terrified people. But yeah, I highly recommend this one if you guys are fans of older sci-fi films or older horror films. This does, you know, come in like the 4:3 format. It's not redone in, you know, widescreen or anything like that. It is kept in its original aspect ratio, which kind of bothers you at first when it just fills up the middle of the screen and you got, you know, the sides, there's nothing. But after, you know, 15-20 minutes, I didn't even really pay attention anymore. So again, that is The Thing from Another World, 1951, produced by Howard Hawks, available from Warner Archive. It wasn't, after talking to my contact at Warner Archive, which thank you again for, you know, continuing to work with me and for sending these. I really appreciate it. It was an Amazon exclusive before it was even available through the archive. It's just now kind of listed on their website. So I will leave a link to the Warner Archive website as well if you guys are interested in picking this up. I recommend you guys, you know, support the company and order direct from them. I mean, you might be able to get it a couple dollars cheaper on Amazon, but from what I hear, talking with a friend of mine, they have delayed one of his orders for a film from them, and they seem to have issues here and there with these made-on-demand titles. So if you guys want it and you want it fast, definitely order directly from Warner Archive, or if you want to wait till the next 4 for 44 sale, whatever. You know, that's probably the best way to do it. But yeah, show them some love and support, and you know, definitely a top-notch company. The transfer was really good, especially for, like I say, something that old, something that came out in 51. I mean, you're not going to get a much better transfer than this. I will say the audio was a little fuzzy, poppy, whatever, especially towards the beginning of the movie. But aside from that, I didn't see any issues with it. There might have been a small like glitch in there somewhere. I can't remember exactly where. I think it was towards the middle or farther. This only runs 87 minutes, by the way, and I cannot believe it was over like that quick. I mean, I was really, it's just over before you know it, because there's so much going on constantly, whether it's the action parts or the dialogue is just pop, pop, pop. It's just, you know, there's no real boring parts of this film. So, yeah, definitely check it out, guys, if you guys are fans of movies from that era and this genre and everything. And, yeah, I mean, I'm glad after being alive for 36 years that I finally checked this out. I mean, it was one that I probably never would have, honestly, if it hadn't came to the archive. And I'm glad that it did. I'm glad they're the ones that got a hold of it and put out a good transfer of this film. As far as features, there's only 2 different trailers on here. You have a reissue HD trailer, which has Spanish subtitles embedded in it, and you have a regular standard definition trailer as well. I mean, it would have been nice to have something on here, but with a film being that old, I don't know exactly what they would have lying around to put on there, but I don't know. That is the one thing, that is probably my only gripe of the archive titles, is most of them do not have any or barely any special features. But other than that, I mean, I'll take a great transfer over a half-done transfer and a ton of features. I mean, quality of the film itself is more important than anything. So, yeah, thank you all for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it's pretty short as far as the story and everything, but I think most everybody kind of knows what this movie's about. So I will say, you know, as far as this and the remake, the reimagining from John Carpenter, it is definitely a completely different story. I mean, the only similarities that I saw is, you know, something coming from another world, you know, that alien being, and that fear of isolation and things like that, and the Arctic setting really are the only similarities. The way that, I mean, this thing doesn't, you know, jump to different people, or it doesn't, you know, do anything like that. It's just that one thing. But there is a scene in here too where the doctor realizes by using what is it, like bone marrow or something like that, or whatever, to grow vegetation. You know, so we kind of learn from this being as well. But anyway, I might have had that completely wrong on what it was that they were using. But yeah, again, I definitely recommend picking this one up, guys. And the next review from them will be for Year of the Dragon with Mickey Rourke, which is another one that is available now through them. If you guys are interested in picking that up, like I said, the link to their website will be down in the description box. And yeah, I'll leave you guys now with the trailer to this film, and I'll see you guys on the next review. Bye.
That thing's alive, sir. I saw it. I shot at it. I hit it. I know it. Nothing happened. It just kept coming at me, making a noise like a cat mewing. Captain, it was awful. If you could have seen those hands and those eyes. Captain, you've got to do something about it. You've got...
Is it human or inhuman? Earthly or unearthly? Baffling questions, astounding questions that not even the world's greatest scientific minds can answer.
Gentlemen, do you realize what we've found? A being from another world, as different from us as one pole from the other. If we can only communicate with it.
See? What happened, Doc?
In the greenhouse, I was working. I couldn't see.
Yeah.
Then a blast of cold air, and I heard Olson scream.
Come here. Get in the corner. Now hold this in front of you. Stay by the light switch.
1.9. Needles hit the top.